Hi, my name is Allison Rowe, and before I start off my presentation today, I want to thank you all for listening and watching. I really appreciate it. So, the question that I have for you all today is if any of you are interested in a topic that not only affects your local community but the whole world as well. So, the topic that I will be discussing today is on the issue of sex trafficking. Unfortunately, the sex trade is still prevalent and it still occurs today in modern society. And if any of you are confused with what the sex trade is, I have a definition of it that I found from an article titled Sex Trafficking of Women and Girls. And this article was written by Nia A. Deshpande and Noel M. Noir. And they had described sex trafficking as sex trafficking involves some form of forced or coerced sexual exploitation that is not limited to prostitution and has become a significant and growing problem in both the United States and the larger global communities. So, unfortunately, sex trafficking is still prevalent today, and I'm gonna just, even though it happens global, I just wanted to focus on the United States just because I feel like it's more relevant to all of us just because we live in the United States. Um, so, sex trafficking, the states where it's most prevalent in is Florida, California, New York, and Texas. And the groups that I'm going to be talking about today that are mostly targeted by sex trafficking today are children, the Native American population, and women. Of course, anyone can be targeted by the sex trade, but these just are the groups that tend to be targeted the most. So the first group that I'm going to be talking about today that are targeted by sex traffickers are children. Unfortunately, children under the age of 18 tend to be targeted by sex traffickers just because they're easily manipulated and they are trusting of strangers. And unfortunately, they can also be sold into the sex trade by their parents or by a loved one, which I just think that is so sad. Like, that is just the saddest thing I've ever heard, honestly. Just imagine, like, a child being sold into the sex trade by their own parents. I just find that so heartbreaking. So, the Deputy Attorney General James Cole actually stated that some of our most vulnerable children also face the threat of being victimized by commercial sexual exploitation. Runaways, throwaways, sexual assault victims, and neglected children can be recruited into a life of forced prostitution. So it's just unfortunate too because children who undergo trauma um, due to sex trafficking, I mean, they have a lot of mental health disorders such as PTSD, and it's just very sad because even if they escape the life of the sex trade, they can never truly escape it in their mind, and I just think that is so sad. So the second group that I'm going to be talking to you all about today that is affected by sex traffickers is the Native American population. Unfortunately, the Native American population is targeted by them. According to Valora Inus Nahonsoya, the high rates of poverty and hardship in tribal communities, historical trauma and culture loss, homelessness and runaway youth, high rates of involvement with child welfare systems, including entry into the foster care system, exposure to violence in the home or community, drug and alcohol abuse, and low levels of law enforcement all add up to a community rich in target traffickers. And I just think this is very sad because historically, as you all should know, the Native American population has just constantly had unfair and unjust treatment, and it is just so sad that to this day they still receive this same type of treatment. It is just the saddest thing. The third group that I'm going to be talking about today that is targeted by sex traffickers is women. So according to Nia A. Deshpande and Noel M. Noir, which I had previously stated from the article Sex Trafficking of Women and Girls, there are approximately 800,000 people trafficked across international borders annually, and of these, 80% of these are women and girls. So this is just so sad, and women tend to be put into the sex trade more than men, just because men tend to be put into the forced labor trade, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically where they're just put into different areas of the world and they're being put under forced labor, and that's a very sad and a very serious issue as well. So now I'm going to speak to you all about an issue that you can all donate to, or you can even visit the website. So the website is freedomnetwork.org, freedomnetworkusa.org, and the organization name is Freedom Network USA, and they basically deal with the two different types of human trafficking, as I had previously stated before, the labor trade and the sex trade. And it's just such important to inform yourself. It's just so important to inform yourself and to become educated because this issue can affect anyone. It truly can. So the website, freedomnetworkusa.org, as I had previously stated, it gives you so many interesting facts about the sex trade that you can really just learn and you can implement in your everyday life, just to learn to, watch out for signs of sex trade occurring in your own community. So, in conclusion, I had talked about the different groups that are affected by the sex trade, as well as the organization that you can donate to, freedomnetworkusa.org. I would really advise you all to donate to this organization. I think it's so important to help those that are in need, and it's such an important issue. Thank you just all for listening and watching, and please donate to this organization. I cannot say that enough. It is so important that you're just interested in this stuff, just because it's such a sad issue, and it's such an important issue that happens to this day. So thank you all for watching.